I'm a modern man, a man for the millennium. I've been uplinked and downloaded, I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the downside of upgrading, I know the upside of downsizing. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge state-of-the-art bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm a warm-hearted, heat-seeking, hot-wired, cool customer. I'm voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface from a database, and my database is in cyberspace. So I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time, I'm radioactive. I'm a streetwise smart bomb, a Top Gun bottom feeder. I wear power ties, I tell power lies, I take power naps, I run victory laps. I'm a raging workaholic, a working rageaholic. I got a personal trainer, a personal shopper, a personal assistant, and a personal agenda. You can't shut me up, you can't dumb me down, because I'm tireless and I'm wireless. I'm upfront, down home, low rent, high maintenance, long-lasting, built to last, fast-acting, high definition, and oven ready. I come in all sizes. I take a short position on a long bond, and my revenue stream has its own cash flow. My output is down, but my income is up. I eat junk food, I read junk mail, I buy junk bonds, I watch trash sports. I'm capital intensive, gender specific, user friendly, and not a liability. I bought a microwave from a mini mall. I bought a minivan at a mega store. I eat slow food in the fast lane. I'm toll-free, bite-sized, user-friendly, ready to wear, and I come in all sizes. I've been pre-washed, pre-soaked, pre-cooked, pre-heated, pre-dried, pre-approved, pre-screened, and post-dated, freeze-dried, vacuum-packed, and I have an unlimited broadband capacity. That was a rendition of Modern Man by comedian George Carlin. Did you notice something odd, something just a little bit peculiar about that? A lot of the vocabulary used in that piece was advertisement lingo. It's something that we see on TV or read in print and news advertisements. But not just that, we've begun to use that language in our daily life. It's almost like it's infiltrated our daily vocabulary. And it has, especially in English. Because English has always been integral to colonial and imperialist activities, something that's very visible in our Eurocentric education system today. English has been a symbol of, and continues to be a symbol of modernity, of development, of a particular class, and therefore of what we define as good upbringing, amongst various other things. Therefore, English has been integral to the cultural needs and the cultural aims of capitalism. What I mean by that is that capitalism has affected in the past, continues to affect, and for the foreseeable future will affect our vocabulary. And this affected vocabulary helps us internalize the structures of capitalism. I know this sounds like a bit of a conspiracy theory, but just hold on. All right, let's not jump to conclusions. Let's think about this 10 minutes from now. Language is a system that permits thinking. We think through language, okay? Because language helps us formulate social relations. Language helps us categorize things, ideas, people, our surroundings. Not just that, it's the way that the words we use, which reflect the way we look at things, also tell us the way we think about things, about certain ideas, people, etc. A very, very good example of this is in Harry Potter. I don't know whether J.K. Rowling meant this or not, but it's a fantastic example nonetheless. Throughout the 7 books, especially in the first few books, a majority of people refuse to call Voldemort by his name. They call him he who must not be named. Why? Because quite literally saying his name, saying those words, empower him. They give him power. Along a similar line, highlighting the power of words and vocabulary, movements of equality have historically gone out of their way to reclaim certain words. The feminist movement has tried to reclaim slut, bitch, whore, cunt. The Black Power movement has tried to reclaim the word nigger. Now, these are obviously done for a reason, because words have power. The first concept I'm going to be using to talk about what that power is called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Now, what the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says is that language helps constitute reality. That reality is not what is there, but in fact what we see through our symbols. Obviously, the symbols are done via language. Therefore, language helps us define people, things, and ideas. It helps us characterize them, and it makes them distinguishable. Therefore, if a group of people have different languages, their concepts or notions of concepts will differ slightly. For example, language adds a tremendous amount of distinguishability, like I've already mentioned. Because calling me Vedant doesn't simply mean that I am Vedant. It also means that I'm not anybody else. I'm not Juhi. I'm not Kriti. I'm not Joshua. I'm Vedant. The second theory or concept that I'm going to be using is called the Thomas theorem. Now, the Thomas theorem says that the way one looks at reality or defines reality is real in its consequences. Therefore, the interpretation of situation actually causes an action. When we add the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and the Thomas theorem, what we get is language helps you define reality, and the way you define reality is real in its consequences. That's the reason why rape jokes, especially where the victim is the punchline, are said to trivialize the act. That's why caste abuses are illegal as per the Constitution. That's why, like I said before, social movements of equality go out of their way to reclaim certain slurs, certain insults. It's because the identities of people are given a framework to exist equally, to exist within dignity. Even if that framework is linguistic, the point is, after a point in time, that will translate to reality, that will translate to a tangible framework. That's enough about language for now, I guess. Let's move on to the elephant in the room, capitalism. Capitalism has become a truly global system in every sense of that phrase. It's no longer simply an economic mode of production. It's existing in most places in the world, in most spheres of our life, in art, entertainment, culture, society, religion, politics, everywhere. It's everywhere. I believe language has got a little part to play here. It's one of the reasons how or why capitalism has become so inseparable is because of renaming of institutional practices by managerial instruction. Again, a lot of words together sound heavy. Let's use an example to analyze that. Again, I'm going to be going back to George Carlin in a bit, but let's set the tone. What this example is going to be about is a national conversation nowadays, and also, unfortunately, a national excuse. Soldiers. It's very obvious that war is a very, very profitable business. Not only does it create debt that has middle to long-term financial reward for creditors, but it also gives rise to various subsidiary businesses. We all know about this. But in the actual act of war, the laborers per se are the soldiers. Capitalism has restricted our imagination about what these people go through in war and the effect it has on them later. Using a Carlin example, around World War I, there was a battle condition. It referred to a condition when your nervous system was overstressed to the point where it snaps. The condition was called shell shock. Fast, direct, crude, honest. Almost like the sound of battle itself, right? Shell shock, shell shock. A couple of decades later, this very same condition was called battle fatigue. It's a little different. It lacks a bit of a punch, less direct. Fatigue is a better word than shock. Give it a couple of more decades, and this very condition is called operational exhaustion. Doesn't sound like something that happens to human beings, does it? It's something that happens to machines. Operational exhaustion. The word is sterile. There's no humanity left in it anymore. So, you see the way this word was changed. It's the very same concept, but this word was changed over time, which influenced the way we thought about this concept. Another example of institutional practices is a very, very modern, contemporary concept. It's the concept of human capital. Human capital, Economics 101, we study in 10th and 12th grade that one of the 4 factors of production is labor. So labor has always been commodified. The laborer has been commodified under human capital. That's a new development. We have depersonalized people by and large. So the point is that there has been a lot of institutional renaming of practices, and this is actually percolated on a very personal level, an individual level. What I mean by that is, for example, let's look at the idea that, and this is a conversation I've been party of or I've heard. Okay, in colleges, or in schools, we often say, let's not take XYZ in our project because there'll be a liability. Or the exact opposite, let's take XYZ in our group project because they'll be an asset. We'll get good marks and whatnot. Another example of this is, and all of us again have said this, I wasn't as productive at work today. or I'm not going to get good marks for this because I didn't study efficiently enough. You're talking about people as assets and liabilities. You're talking about productivity and efficiency. All of this has come about because redefinition of the concept of work. Work, according to us now, is generally or invariably economic in nature. It's not just people doing things. Neither is it people doing things to connect with the society within which they live in, by and large. It's people doing things for money. That's what work has become. Let's look at a very, very essential part of human life that we've gone out of our way to commodify: education. Everywhere we call education an investment. I'm going to be graduating in a few months. So I have this really awkward conversation of people asking me, graduation ke baad kya ho raha hai? And every time they ask me about whether or not I'm going abroad to study, there's always one question that's asked. The question is whether or not the amount I will be investing in my degree will give me the returns on that degree. That's a really reductionist way to look at education. Something as holistic, as dynamic, as beautiful as education. It's become an investment opportunity. A few other words that that have generally seeped into our vocabulary are surplus, deficit, opportunity cost, cost-benefit analysis, utility, revenue. These words have become a part of our daily dialogue. Opportunity cost is a particularly funny one. I've overheard people say or talk about the opportunity cost of love or the returns on a personal relationship. If you think that's odd, I'm mentioning opportunity cost in particular because just 2 years ago, at this very event, on this very platform, in this very college, there was a speaker that spoke about, amongst other things, of course, the opportunity cost of love. So the fact that these words are used in daily vocabulary is perhaps not as outlandish as it was 10 minutes ago. Let's move on to another concept that I believe has implicit moral connotations also: investment and expenditure. Whenever we see the news, you always see these two words being thrown around a lot in public policy debates and whatnot. The moral connotation is investment is a financial opportunity and expenditure is the lack of a financial opportunity. It's peculiar how investment is always used in relation to defense contracts. Expenditure is always when we talk about giving the population of the country food, health, jobs, sanitation, etc., subsidies, all of this is expenditure. The point is that when we talk about investment and expenditure in those very terms, we are reproducing this discourse and the moral connotations attached to it. We're not realizing the power that we are drawing from the words that we're using or the influence they're having, not just on our thinking, but, like I said, the entire discourse. It's because we've attached these connotations, but let it not seem like I'm discounting the economics behind public policy. No, I'm not even discounting that other forms of socialization do exist. I'm not doing any of that. I'm simply trying to highlight the role that language plays. Another idea that I've already mentioned is productivity and efficiency. Underpaying mazdoors, not giving them regular contracts, not giving them social security benefits. All of this comes under the generally accepted idea of productivity, of efficiency, but we don't question that. Growth, another word that we love to use and is thrown around often. Election season, it's going to be thrown around again. Growth is inherently non-inclusive. There are people that are a part of growth to various degrees, obviously, and there are people that are not a part of the growth. These two groups are looked at very, very differently, and there are very tangible differences between them, differences of consumption, but we never really revisit these concepts. When it comes to consumption, there is the most integral question that I perhaps will be raising today. That is the question of our identities. Our identities have become consumer identities. Everything we do, our daily life, our routine interactions with people have become commercial transactions. Teachers provides a service for a particular fee. Like I said, parents invest in their children's education to get returns on it, or at least, help their children get returns on it. our primary identities are our consumer identities now. Therefore, we've come to a point where neoliberalization and capitalism are inseparable from a common sense understanding of life itself. Let's move to another point I'd like to highlight. This is that I feel capitalism has affected our morality. When we were young, and I guess that goes to a couple of generations prior to mine too, we were almost universally taught sharing is caring. Now we're told greed is good. False gods tell us to stay hungry, stay foolish. Sharing is caring is an idea has become almost obsolete in the face of philosophies such as Ayn Rand that glorify self-interest and individualism. Let me back myself up with some research here. There was a professor called Patricia Greenfield of UCLA. She conducted a study of 1.5 million American and British books between the years 1800 and 2000. They analyzed the shift of vocabulary in those books. Over those 200 years, the words that we use became more individualist, became more acquisitive. There was an increase in the words of, in the likes of words like get, choose, unique, individual, self, amongst others. So, and we're talking about America and the USA and the UK here. So very obviously there was a transition in the socio-economic systems that existed there, and this transition was reflected in the vocabulary. Not just reflected in the vocabulary, the point is, now we've come to internalize these ideas. So now this language, this vocabulary is upholding those systems, is helping us internalize, helping us naturalize these ideas that we're all innately selfish, that we're all innately individualistic beings. But the point is, we're not. The point is that these ideas were created very, very recently. The point is that these ideas were created artificially. Neoliberalism and vocabulary have a relationship wherein it's not just one affecting the other. It's not capitalism affecting our vocabulary only. It's our vocabulary helping sustain these structures. The point is that we need to realize that the words we use have a certain power within them. And we need to be aware of this power. We need to realize that a lot of things we take as given today, our morality, our language, the social structures that are around us, our reality, by and large, has been constructed. It is not intrinsic. It is not innate. None of this is natural. Another world is possible. Thank you.